Open the door to a storage room that has been shut up for 2 weeks in the middle of summer, and the air that rolls out at you is not just hot, it is heavy. It sits on your face like a wet cloth. There is a sourness to it, something stale and close and faintly wrong, the smell of heat that has been sitting still too long with nowhere to go. You step back from it, you do not want to breathe it. That same air collects in a chicken coop when the ventilation is not right, in a camper that has been parked in the sun, in a back bedroom with one small window on the wrong side of the house. Hot and still and stale, and not the kind of air that does you or your animals any good to breathe all day. I want to show you something today that costs about $7, takes no more than 15 minutes to set up, needs no power to run, and does 2 jobs at once. It brings the temperature of the incoming air down a few degrees, and it pulls the staleness and the smell out of that air at the same time. One tray, one material, the price of a coffee. And the material doing all of that work is the same material packed inside the expensive air cleaning machines that sell for $300 and $400 at the hardware store. I am going to show you exactly what it is, exactly how to build it, exactly where to put it so it actually works, and I am going to be completely straight with you about what it will do and what it will not. There is a lot of overselling around this topic, and I would rather you trust what I tell you than be impressed by it. There is also one safety point worth knowing, and I will not skip it. Let me start with the science, because once you understand it, everything else makes sense and you will never forget it. There are 2 things happening here, and they work together. The first is cooling, and it is the most ancient cooling trick there is. It is evaporation. You already know it from your own skin. When you step out of the water on a hot day and the breeze moves across you, you feel cold. Much colder than the air temperature alone would explain. That is because water turning from liquid into vapor does not do it for free. It takes heat along with it when it goes. Every drop of water that evaporates off your skin carries a little parcel of heat away from your body and into the air. The air blowing across you is the engine that drives that process. More breeze, more evaporation, more cooling. That is why a damp cloth hung in a doorway will cool the room behind it. That is why a wet surface in the path of moving air always produces cooler air on the other side. Move air across something wet and the air comes out cooler than it went in. It has been true since the beginning, and it will be true long after every machine we have ever built has stopped working. The second thing is the cleaning, and this is where the material becomes special. The material is charcoal, but not the kind you grill with. I will be very precise about that in a moment, because the difference matters completely. The right kind of charcoal is called activated charcoal, and what makes it extraordinary is what is happening inside it at a scale you cannot see. A single, small handful of it, if you could somehow unfold every tunnel and channel and microscopic passage running through it and lay them out flat, would cover an area bigger than a large room. All of that surface packed into a piece you can hold in your palm. It is the most porous, solid material most people will ever encounter, riddled through like the most complicated sponge ever made, and that porosity gives it 2 remarkable properties. The first property is that it holds a tremendous amount of water for its size. A handful of it soaked in water is a slowly releasing reservoir of moisture, a perfect wet surface for that evaporative cooling to work against as air passes across it. The second property is the reason it ends up inside the expensive machines. All those tiny passages and surfaces grab onto the compounds floating in the air. The smell molecules, the ammonia rising out of animal litter, the volatile compounds that make stale air smell stale and closed rooms smell closed. As air moves through that charcoal, those compounds stick to the surfaces inside it and stay there. The air that comes out the other side is not just cooler from the evaporation, it is cleaner because the charcoal has caught and held what was wrong with it. The technical word for it is adsorption, the sticking of compounds to a surface rather than being absorbed into it. But you do not need the word, you need to understand that the charcoal physically traps what makes air smell bad and holds on to it. That is why it is in water filters. That is why it is in the expensive air purifiers. It works. The only question is whether you buy it in a plastic housing with a brand name on it or in a loose bag from the pet aisle for $7. Now, I have to stop and be very clear about which charcoal, because if you get this wrong, the whole thing fails and you will think the idea does not work when really you just used the wrong material. You want activated charcoal. It comes as loose black granules, and you will find it most cheaply in the aquarium section of any pet store, sold as filter media for fish tanks. A bag runs somewhere between $5 and $8 depending on where you buy it. You can also find it labeled as horticultural charcoal in garden sections or as activated carbon in filter supply stores. Any of those is the right thing. The words to look for are activated charcoal or activated carbon. What you must not use is barbecue charcoal briquettes, the kind that comes in the big bags for grilling. That is a completely different product. It is charcoal pressed together with binders and fillers into a brick shape, and it does not have the microscopic pore structure that makes activated charcoal work. It will not cool the air, it will not clean the air, it will just sit there in your tray doing nothing, and you will correctly conclude that the idea is nonsense, when in fact the idea is sound and you simply used the wrong material. Activated charcoal, the loose black granules. That is the one and only thing that works here. Here is how you build the basic setup. It is genuinely 15 minutes, and the materials are things most people have around the house or can get for nothing. You need a shallow tray or pan. A baking pan works. A plastic storage container works. A wooden box with a sheet of plastic laid inside it works. A metal dish. A garden tray. A low-sided crate. Anything that holds a layer of the granules and is open on top so air can pass across the surface. Depth matters less than surface area. You want the charcoal spread out wide, not piled up deep. Spread your activated charcoal in the tray in a layer roughly 1 to 2 inches thick. More than that, and you are wasting material. What you want is a broad, flat surface of charcoal exposed to the moving air, not a deep column of it. Then you wet it. Pour clean water over the charcoal slowly and evenly until it is soaked all the way through. Let it sit for a few minutes and drink in the water. Then tilt the tray and pour off any water that has pooled in the bottom and is sitting free. You want the charcoal wet, the way a wrung-out sponge is wet. Damp all the way through, holding moisture in every pore, but not sitting in standing water at the bottom. Standing water does nothing useful. It does not evaporate into the air. It just sits there. Damp charcoal with air moving across it does the work. That distinction matters. Now, where you put the tray is the single most important decision in this whole setup, and it is the part most people get wrong. A tray of damp charcoal sitting in the center of a room on a table does almost nothing useful. The small amount of cooling it produces just rises into the air above it, mixes with everything else and vanishes. You will feel nothing. You will think the whole idea is a waste, and you will be right to think so, because used that way, it nearly is. The right place, the only place that makes this a real system instead of a curiosity, is at the point where outside air enters the space. The window where the breeze comes through, the vent opening in the coop. The doorway, the air moves across. You set the tray right there, in the path of the incoming air, so that every breath of air entering the space has to pass across the surface of that damp charcoal before it reaches the room or the animals inside. Now, every bit of air coming in is cooled by a few degrees from the evaporation and stripped of its smell and its staleness by the charcoal's surface before it ever enters the space. You are not trying to cool the whole room with a small tray. You are treating the air at the point of entry, like a filter on an intake. That is the difference between a system that works and one that just sits there looking like it should. If you have a natural cross breeze moving through the space, that is enough. The breeze does the driving, the charcoal does the treating. No power required. If you want it to work harder, a small battery-powered fan aimed to pull air across the tray will increase the airflow and increase the cooling and cleaning effect. But the fan is optional. A good window breeze on its own will do the job. That is the whole build. A shallow tray, a bag of activated charcoal, water, positioned at the air intake, 15 minutes and $7. Now the safety point, and I will not rush past it. Damp charcoal in an open, ventilated space is perfectly safe. That is exactly the condition you want for this to work anyway. Air moving through, windows open, ventilation going. Used that way, there is no concern. But there is one scenario you want to avoid. Do not place a large bed of damp charcoal in a small sealed room with no air movement, and then sit in that room with the door and windows shut. Activated charcoal in a sealed space with no airflow can slowly deplete the oxygen in the air as it works. The risk is not dramatic, but it is real, and it is worth knowing. The good news is that the scenario you need to avoid is also the scenario in which the setup would not work anyway. This system depends on air movement to do anything useful. No airflow means no evaporation, no cooling, no air being passed across the charcoal to be cleaned. So the condition that makes it safe, keeping the air moving with open windows and vents, is exactly the same condition that makes it effective. They are the same rule. Keep the air moving. Open window, open vent, cross breeze. Never a sealed, shut room with no ventilation. Follow that rule and you are doing it right on both counts. Let me tell you where this works best and where it earns its money most reliably, because it is not the same answer everywhere. The place where this setup does the most good is anywhere that combines heat with a smell problem. A chicken coop in July is the perfect example. Birds are not efficient at shedding heat. They do not sweat the way mammals do, and they start to struggle when temperatures get up into the upper 80s. When it climbs past 100 in a closed coop, the situation becomes dangerous quickly, and layered on top of the heat, you have the ammonia rising out of the litter, sharp and stinging hard on their lungs and their eyes, a real welfare issue and not just a discomfort. Now picture a low box built from scrap lumber, open on the two faces that will face the airflow, lined inside with hardware cloth or metal screen to hold the granules. Fill it 2 or 3 inches deep with wetted, activated charcoal and set it in the vent opening or the gap where the breeze enters the coop. Every bit of air coming into that coop now passes through it first. It arrives a few degrees cooler from the evaporation. It arrives with the ammonia stripped out of it by the charcoal. The air your birds are breathing is genuinely cooler and genuinely cleaner than what the day is delivering outside. On a bad week in August, that is not a minor improvement. That is the difference between birds that come through a heat wave and birds that do not. The same logic applies directly to a rabbit hutch, to a dog kennel, to a corner of a barn where young animals shelter. Same setup, same placement at the air intake, cool and clean both at once for the price of a bag of aquarium filter media. For a room in the house, a camper, a shed you spend time in, the bedroom window version works the same way. A tray or a low box set on the windowsill in the path of the evening breeze. The air coming in off the cooler night is treated before it reaches you, cooler and fresher. Not air conditioning, not even close to air conditioning, but noticeably better than untreated, hot, stale air coming through an open window. And it costs nothing to run once you have set it up. Now, I have to be honest with you about the cooling specifically, because this is exactly where the overselling happens, and I will not add to it. The cleaning effect works everywhere. It does not care whether you are in Arizona or Alabama. Air passing across activated charcoal loses its smell, compounds, and its stale quality regardless of humidity. That part is reliable and consistent no matter where you live. The cooling effect depends on the air. Specifically, it depends on how dry the air is, because evaporation only happens when the air has room to take on more moisture. In a dry climate, the Rocky Mountain West, the high desert, the plains in a dry summer, the air is hungry for moisture. It pulls water off the charcoal fast, and you get a real drop in temperature, several degrees, enough to feel clearly and to matter. That is why swamp coolers work so well in those places, and why people in those regions swear by this kind of system. In humid climates, the Gulf Coast, the mid-Atlantic in a muggy summer, the air is already carrying close to all the water it can hold. There is little room for more, so evaporation is slow and the cooling effect is gentle. A couple of degrees, sometimes less, not a dramatic plunge. So let me set your expectation honestly and specifically. If you are in a dry climate, this will cool the incoming air in a way you will plainly feel and your animals will plainly feel. If you are in a humid climate, the cooling is modest and the real value is in the air cleaning. Both are useful, but they are not the same thing, and I would rather tell you the truth now than have you disappointed later because someone told you to expect what your climate cannot deliver. A couple of honest degrees in humid air is still a real benefit. Just know what you are getting. And one more honest thing, the upkeep. Because the setup without the maintenance is eventually just a dry tray doing nothing. The charcoal dries out. That is the nature of evaporation. It gives off its moisture and eventually it needs more. In warm, dry weather, this can happen within a day. Check it each morning and re-wet it if it has dried. 30 seconds with a cup of water is all it takes. If you let it go dry, it stops cooling, and the airflow across dry charcoal does not clean as effectively either. Wet it each morning, and it works all day. That is the full maintenance requirement. The other thing that happens over time is that the charcoal fills up. It catches smell compounds and holds them, which is exactly what you want. But eventually those surfaces get full, and the charcoal slows down. After a month or two of real use, especially in a coop or other high-smell environment, you will notice it is not as effective as it was. That is not a failure. That is it doing its job until its capacity runs out. Here is what most people do not know. You do not throw it away. You set it out in full, direct sunlight for a day. The heat of the sun drives the trapped compounds back out of the charcoal and releases them into the open air, refreshing all those surfaces and restoring the material to nearly its original capacity. One bag of activated charcoal, re-wet every morning and put out in the sun every month or two, will last you through an entire season. The cost is the original $7 or $8. After that, it is water and sunshine, both of which cost nothing. Now, let me say something about what this whole thing represents, because the charcoal tray is just the surface of it. Walk into any hardware store or big box home improvement store and look at the air quality section. There are machines for $200, machines for $400, machines with filters that cost $40 each and need replacing every 3 months. There are products with brand names and warranty cards and apps you can use to check the air quality from your phone. Each one of these is a product that requires you to keep buying something. The machine itself first, and then the filters, and then more filters, and then a new machine. When the old one wears out or the company stops making the filters for it, pull out the filter from one of those machines and look at it. The active material inside it, the thing that is actually doing the work of catching smell and particulates from the air, is activated charcoal. The same loose black granules you can buy from the pet aisle for $7. They put it in a molded plastic housing, give it a branded frame and a certification sticker, and sell you a new one 4 times a year, because the housing is not designed to be regenerated. And they do not tell you about the sun trick, because there is no money in a trick you do yourself for free. This is not a conspiracy. It is just how products work. The money is not in the charcoal. The money is in the housing and the brand and the subscription and the replacement cycle. The charcoal is the same everywhere. The charcoal does not care what housing it is in. It does the same job in a $7 bag, in a tray on your windowsill, that it does in a $400 machine on your nightstand. That is why this knowledge is not loudly advertised. Not because it is wrong or ineffective. It is the same active material. It works the same way. But there is no recurring revenue in a bag of aquarium filter media and a sunny day, so nobody with a marketing budget is going to tell you about it. The people who know about it are the people who never had the budget for the expensive machine in the first place and figured it out, or the people who asked why the expensive machine worked and traced it back to the material, or the people who remembered that their grandparents kept things cool and clean without any machine at all. That knowledge belongs to anyone who wants it. It does not require a credit card or a subscription or a trip to a specialty store. It requires a walk down the pet aisle and 15 minutes. So, here is what I want you to do before this week is out. Go to the pet section of any store near you and pick up a bag of activated charcoal, the loose black granules sold for aquarium filters, $5 to $8. Read the label to confirm it says activated charcoal or activated carbon, and that it is the loose granular kind, not a pressed block. Find any shallow tray you have at home. A baking pan, a plastic storage lid, a low wooden box with plastic sheeting inside. Spread the charcoal in a layer 1 to 2 inches deep. Wet it thoroughly with clean water. Let it soak. Pour off the extra. It should feel like a wrung-out sponge all the way through. Set it at the point where air enters your space. The window, where the breeze comes in, the vent in the coop. The doorway that gets the cross breeze, in the path of the air, not in the middle of the room. Make sure the air is moving through. Open window, open vent, cross breeze. This is how it works, and this is how it stays safe. Re-wet it each morning, set it out in the sun every month or 2 to refresh it. That is the whole system, $7.15. Cool and clean air at the intake of your space for the rest of the summer. If you are setting it up for your animals, build a low box from scrap wood or repurpose a crate, line it with hardware cloth to hold the granules, and set it directly in the vent opening or the gap where the air enters the coop or the hutch or the kennel. Your animals will feel the difference, and so will you when you walk in. Tell me in the comments what you are setting yours up for. The bedroom window, the coop, the camper, the barn corner. Tell me where you live too, because the people in the dry climates and the people in the humid south are going to get different results from the cooling side. And I want to hear what you actually find. I read every single comment, and what people report back from their own situations is what makes this worthwhile. Next time, I am going to take this further and show you how to combine this with shade and with water mass to keep an animal space genuinely cool through the worst days of summer without spending anything beyond what most people already have around a working property. It is the natural next step after today, and together the two setups cover most of what a hot summer throws at you. Until then, get the tray in the window, keep the air moving, let the charcoal do the work it was made to do, and let the sun refresh it when it needs it. Simple things done right are almost always enough.